Which thus brings us to Woodman's side story, which returns focus to Saloma, who we've not seen since Battle Network 1. Since then, she's been manning her shops and set up a temp stand in AC/DC Park, and thus both are present when AC/DC's mayor comes by and decides it's time for the Parks District to go, as it doesn't do anything for anyone.
Is the mayor the Japanese equivalent of a Republican?
Well, Sal doesn't like that. This calls up a bunch of her fellow environmentalist crusaders to protest the change. Unfortunately, since she's busy, Sal's friends have gone radical, and decides that's the only way to stop the mayor is to kill him.
Really? You're jumping straight from a politician wants to do something that needs to get approved by the city council because it's public land to he needs to die for it? Don't want to protest, raise awareness, get flyers to reject his plan? You're just going to straight terrorism? There is a reason on my show that it's become a recurring gag that I call environmental terrorists idiots.
So yeah, we've got to stop them from blowing up the Dendome Dimmadome, followed by having to stop Woodman, who Sal's friends hijacked and tricked into helping them, and we need to get him to stop in the park area again.
Now, here's where things get bad. And I mean bad as in the game is literally broken bad.
See, to get to Woodman, you need to travel through the park area again, with a bunch of its wood towers spearing out from under the region. But part of this event was so bugged and never placed it at all because of the goddamn New Game Plus system that no playtester ever got around to seeing that if you get into any net battle, hell, even opening the freaking menu while this event is going on, causes the game to completely stall out and begin moving at a snail's pace. Hell, even trying to last it out is impossible, as if you get into any net battle against viruses or ghost data, your chip folder vanishes and your Navi Customizer mods are disabled, so you are guaranteed death through the slowdown, thus making it literally impossible to clear.
Now you might say to yourself, hey, there's the subship sneak run, isn't there? I'll just use that and get around this. Well, you can't. See, the area of effect for this problem is bigger than the area Sneak Run covers, and Sneak Run is no guarantee of stopping encounters. Worse, in this area of effect, you cannot open the menu to save or trigger a second Sneak Run without tripping the bug that stalls out the gameplay.
So how do you get around it? Well, there is a way, and there is only one way. One way only that prevents you from permanently being unable to play or even complete Battle Network 4 Blue Moon, which is the core reason why it is the single most disliked Battle Network game, as before the Wii U re-release, it affected every single copy of the game ever printed and released. So, how do you get around this to actually complete this mission and be able to play more of the game in Blue Moon? Well, like I said, there is one and only one solution.
You had to buy a Game Shark. Yeah, that is the only way. You then install it into the Game Shark codes for Blue Moon that turn on the No Encounters cheat, so you then walk through the area without encountering anything or opening any menus. That is the only way around this, to cheat your way around it. This, my friends, is why the players of the Battle Network games in no way ever make a deal out of people using Game Sharks, Action Replays, or Codebreaker devices to do anything for any of these games. Because they literally required you to use it as a mandatory item.
So we get to Woodman to bring him back to himself and tell him he was duped.
He's a homicidal pyromaniac. What?
God, I am tired of going here to do just the exact same thing to various navies that were brought here.
And he goes back to Sal, where we have our own match after she berates her friends for their insane scheme. Like the prior returning navies, Woodman has nothing new to his skill set, so with some fire chips, even his buffed health is easy to take down. And we get from it Wood Soul, leading us to the final two potential matches. First, with a Navi named Burner Man, whose operator Atsuki is styling himself as a more modern replacement to World 3's Mr. Match, burning with the power of youth.
Thing is, Match has a bone to pick with the guy. Or rather, a lighter.
And the contrast between these two is pretty simple. Atsuki's a hothead who wants to burn everything to cinders as fast and intensely as possible, while Match is content to watch the fire and flames burn forever. Thus, their feud over methodology has them decide to take it outside and onto the net. So now Len and Megaman have to use a water blaster program that has its own minigame to fully charge the water gun so as to squash the flames all in one shot. You have to fight their flames through several different areas, culminating in their conflict once again forcing you to go back to the park area to get them to knock it the hell off, and get Burner Man to focus on our actual fight, with Match even cheering for us in the stands. As while Len and Match have a rivalry, well, let's face it, they both have standards Atsuki lacks. Burner Man, who funnily enough is voiced by Inuyasha in the Access dub, is actually a bit of a challenge. His normal flame attacks have the length of a hero sword, it can charge across the screen, and he has 2 remote burners that move up and down the screen. Fortunately, by trading between the back top and back bottom squares, you can avoid those by blocking them from being able to move to a square that will allow it to attack. Water chips are of course its weakness, so between Bubbler and Wide Shot, plus Aquasol and Blue Moon double charging your water attacks even further, it's not that bad of a fight. But with the battle over, Atsuki flies off into flaming range, and ends up setting himself on fire.
Because unlike Match, who respected his flames, Atsuki didn't. He just chose to use them as a playthings. And when you play with fire, you get burned. Wait, right, I'm supposed to put on sunglasses for the CSI Miami meme.
Which thus brings us to the last potential match of the second tournament, Video Man and their operator, Vidi Narcy. And as you can tell from the localized name, Narcy is a narcissist, and prefers an androgynous beauty look to them, which hides their awful personality. See, Narcy's a movie star, and wants Land to lose on purpose so Narcy can boost their career. They claim that it's because Video Man is damaged and doesn't have long to live, but of course Narcy's lying to their face. He then pretends that he's going to delete Video Man if he can't win, as the Navi's worthless to him, which draws Mega Man into a trap.
Pose.
And with Mega Man frozen in space, Video Man casts Rewind on Mega Man, causing all of the Navi's controls to be permanently reversed. There are 3 release states that will undo the effect that we have to get, but peppered all over the fields now are rewind triggers that, like prior missions in this stage, will return us to the beginning of each map if we trip them. Get the 3 tapes through these tasks, with the first at the end of the park area again, the second in Town 2, and the last in AC/DC 2, to release the lockout and Narcy's cheating, then send him back to the studios in shame. Video Man, like a few other units, can produce video clones of Mega Man for attacks, while videotape blocks your direct attacks to only really be disabled by blocks, so you can't actually get close. And Video Man occasionally sends large videotape blocks to crash onto fields. Once you defeat them, Narcy of course can't accept their defeat and bickers with Video Man about who is responsible, but in reality, they're both terrible. Regardless of what route you take to win the tournament, however, there's one more match here that comes from Nebula itself. Nebula's Grandmaster Navi Laserman hijacks the proceedings, asking Mega Man to come to the net battle machine, and tries to recruit him thanks to him bearing the power of the Dark Soul. He refuses, and depending on version, either Gutsman or Aquaman comes in to help. But to show him the power of darkness and how weak friendship is, Laserman uses the light of his lasers to allow Mega Man's shadow to take on his Dark Soul, and sends it into your friend Navi, turning them into their own Dark Soul state.
Clearly, they were won over by the advertisement, "Join the dark side, we have cookies." Unfortunately, they were unaware that they were out of peanut butter, chocolate chip, or even Oreos, but only had left oatmeal raisin and white chocolate macadamia. Truly a fate worse than death.
These Dark Soul versions of the Navis are only slightly stronger than their tournament variants, but that's not the danger of them. The Dark Soul Navis have access to all your Navi customizer programs and all your battle chips. Meaning the more chips you have, the more Navi customizer blocks you've collected, the more dangerous these Navis become.
If you complete your collection of chips and programs, even if you cheat them, then the Dark Souls become more and more an insurmountable challenge, one you may not be ready for if you've not managed to collect the HP memories, or otherwise have used Dark Chips too much to permanently deplete your own HP beyond manageable levels. This is that the other shoe drops of the use of Dark Souls, too, as it doesn't have that HP loss limitation.
Fortunately, the Dark Soul does not have any tactics and does not know how to use program advances. Or if it does, I have never seen it. So the best way to deal with them are to hit them hard and fast as soon as you can. Turtle up with Wood Soul to outlast its HP in Blue Moon, or take advantage of Roll Soul to destroy the Dark Soul's chip supply and likewise heal yourself. Secondary focus again should be to Number Soul and Surge Soul, if you can get it, to assemble program advances faster. When you defeat it though, and free your friend Navi from its possession, Laserman takes joy in how powerful Mega Man's Dark Soul actually is. And for that matter, how sadistic it is for playing with its food.
Dude, you don't even know the half of that. Though I won't even be able to feature that until I get to talk about stream, because wow, the way they went about adapting Mega Man's Dark Soul is twisted.
Laserman leaves, leaving Mega Man deeply unsettled, while back at Naxa, their laser plan is ready to go. Only as they fire, the laser loses power at the critical moment it needed to be charged to, before it completely burns out, preventing them from trying to fire it multiple times. The time it would take to fix it is too long. By the time it'd be ready, the asteroid would be too close to Earth for them to redirect its path. However, Regal reveals what he kept back from the others. There is evidence that the asteroid is not actually an asteroid, but some type of ship that has collected space debris until it looked like an asteroid.
Welp, in the Battle Network timeline we officially have it. Alien contact!
And because there's technology on it, that means there's a network they can interact with on it. So they can set a net navi in to hopefully be able to change the asteroid's course if they can access whatever propulsion systems within it. And they can change the laser transmission system into a signal transmitter in less time than it would take to repair the laser. But how will they choose who goes on this perilous mission?
I know! Tournament Arc! Yes, seriously.
This begins the last act of the game, with Lan, being the best net battler in Netopia, being invited to participate in the Red Sun and Blue Moon tournaments. Every major nation and continent sending their own representatives, either one or two from each one, to compete against others, unaware of the honor that will be bestowed upon them if they win. This involves Lan once again taking his adventures global, with him making his way to Netopia for the tournament, the region looking very different than it did before the last time they were here.
Went over that in a previous video. For some reason, Netopia looks more like England and for that matter Europe instead of America, even though the England and European equivalents are different countries entirely. It's another reason why this game sucks, as it's clear no one did any peer review to make sure, the elements of culture they were going to make use of when the adventure went international actually matched the relevant cultures or history. Like, relatively recently, G Gundam, a series that made use of nationalities for mecha designs in a world tournament, stupidly got called racist for such. But the thing is, nationalities are not race, and cultural representation, instead of whitewashing, is actually a proper, respectful showcase of such, even if the setting itself is equally silly across everything. Do a bit of research, and the accusation falls apart as it's all surface level. Here, though, it goes back to that same kind of they just didn't care mentality that does more actively come off as harmful, as it treats cultures and regions they're tapping as indistinct and interchangeable, and they're not. But it is only really prejudiced, potentially racist media that thinks they are.
Still, after getting here, we get a chance to look around, see the local sites and attractions, and then we're kidnapped.
Haven't we been here? I swear we've been here.
In reality, this is all part of the prelims for the final tournament, the organizers having the competitors go into the net and get digital key data from locked boxes around the Netopia network, as we now have a pass that lets us access every network in the game.
Well, almost. To access the internet, you need one other item.
In this game, the internet has been locked off by narrow streams that not even a Navi Customizer program can get around. It requires you to assemble the Cyber Slider,
Hang 10! 90s kids would get that.
Out of 3 sets of parts. The board part in Town 2 costing 2,000 zenny, the jet part for 3,000 in the bottom side of Town 3, and the wing part for 4,000 in the Yumland net area. Then you need to go to a sectioned off part of Sharo that requires you then pay 500 more zenny to unlock a door to the Cyber Slider's designer's granddaughter, I have no idea how that works with net navis, who will assemble the pieces.
Now, while this is an obnoxious little side quest, it wouldn't be so bad if you only had to do it once per cartridge. But like everything in this game, you have to do it again every lap around the scenarios you make. Meaning you lose 9,500 Zeti by default as an expense for playing, when this should be something that carries over once you do it, all of once.
Anyways, get that done, and we've cleared the prelims, so I have to once again recap the 8 potential mini-quests. The normal Navi this time around is with an Utopia rep that's obsessed with the game called Foot Bomb.
Do they wear armored greaves that have explosive panels on them?
Well, not entirely. The goal of the game is to kick a bomb into an opponent's net to trigger it to explode, it being a variation on soccer, which requires you to get some special shoes from a Navi in the Netvrica area. That costs a Guard A battle chip from battling Meteors that are dirt common.
I have no complaints about that as I have for the others, simply because that battle chip is dirt common. You should have been able to collect a crap ton of spares of it, as opposed to the chip required being so rare it's hard to get, or makes purchase of it mandatory. That, and I think I only encountered this side quest once per set of 3, it's pretty rare.
After getting the shoes, you go to the goddess statue in Utopia and jack into it for the matches of Foot Bomb, but before you do, install every HP boosting Navi customizer program you can. As if you miss catching the bomb, well, it's an instant loss of 200 hit points. As a normal Navi doesn't have that great a health, as long as you can decently trade exchanges, you should be able to outlast it, and get you to the main match, which like competitors before, are using the tournament for their own selfish promotion. The heel Navi for the tournament is operated by Paulie, from Netvrica, who invites Land back to his village for their regular water festival, where they pay tribute to the system in the new Popo statue that manages their water flow and water supply with a contest to collect a marker that gets sent across the net. The Water God.
Praying to a god of water for water that is supplied to them by technology, and the ritual thus adapted to the worship of technology as if it is an unknown magic. Yeah, this feels racist. At least unless they're part of the Axis Church. Stupid, useless goddess. Though what's frustrating about this one is while you end up only using Foot Bomb once per set, this one is far more common.
And when Paulie loses, he can't take it that an outsider did better than him, thus decides to screw everyone in his home over by breaking the Water God system, meaning we've got to go in and fix the damn thing ourselves. It taking a lot of battles against ghost data from those Navis that died, trying to restart the damn thing in the past, that takes a lot of time to get through. And by the end of it, I end up completely uncaring of this jerk's reason for doing it, or the attempts to give him empathy. Seriously, I just don't care at all. All he cared for is his freaking title, not the people around him. This takes us to the first of the Red Sun exclusives, and the scenario I have played the absolute least.
And it was the only one I was not able to collect footage for, which I then had to grab from YouTube to recap. Because despite its order in this guide, it is always the last scenario you encounter in Red Sun, despite how they are supposed to be shuffled. Which involves Laika and Searchman.
Now, I haven't been bringing up all the various inexplicable localization typos in this game like that text Let's Play advertised at the beginning did because, well, this review is already longer than I wanted it to be. But this side story is one of the worst with that. Rika's name suffers from an LR misromanization in this game, and Searchman's name is missing a vowel. Now, Laika's name has been spelled with both an L and R depending on what official material you see, so there is no consistency to it. But considering he's from the Battle Network universe equivalent of a Russia, a lot of people lean towards it being an L. Regardless, Rika is a member of Sharo's military, and as such, he's a no-nonsense type with a huge chip on his shoulder due to his own record of service, thinking fighting civilian navies are a waste of his time in comparison to the training he and Searchman have put themselves through. And that net battles, even though they're in a tournament, are not a sport.
Just like mixed martial arts are not a sport. Oh wait, they are. And it is really hard to get to like Rika with how he's depicted here.
Now, Access doesn't exactly do the best at depicting Rika as more than an asshole early on, but it makes it more clear that he's more like a Nick Angel from the movie Hot Fuzz type. He is a military officer and keeper of the peace that just does not have an off switch and is married to the job. But Access Rika at least has the courtesy to stay professional until he's able to lighten up a bit and accept Lan and Shad as his companions in fighting off the evils emerging from cyberspace, as he has to rely on his juniors for a significant amount of the time. While he never stops being serious, he at least learns to relax. His game version, however, is assuming everyone must follow an expected standard of military conduct, even though they're not in the military. He is the instigator here, not Lan. Lan was being polite. But Rika gets a call to deploy Searchman to Undernet-6 to deal with a hidden base of Nebula agents, and Lan decides to have Megaman follow, by first following Rika to the Space Center in Char to get a read on the situation, whose agents think that such a task is just too plain strong for a kid that happens to be the king of the Undernet. Especially in the Internet, where we are its king and thus you are trespassing upon our dominion.
No one actually remembers that we won that title from Serenade last game, do they?
The agent gives us an access key though if we pass his test, letting us back onto the net to make the long walk to Undernet 6, and as we first enter the Internet here, Searchman immediately puts his targeting scope on us, Rika ordering him to snipe us. Thus, the minigame for this is to dodge like mad to avoid a sniper's fire on the trip through to the required area. We take out Searchman's target, as he and Rika didn't do it because they were too busy focusing on us and being unprofessional. But this guy has backup, which for some reason Rika then chooses to actually deal with when these peasants try to gang up and take down the king of the Internet. They then gloat that they have a 99% chance of victory.
Well, even 1% can be turned into 100% with the will to win.
So we go to the arena, and Searchman in net battles is something of a trickster guerrilla fighter, using his own variation of a pop-up chip to drop out of sight and then lob tracking grenades at us. Worst off, he can call down a satellite cannon assault on top of his scope gun arm that can snipe you multiple times in a single attack. The best way to deal with Searchman is to start stealing and cracking panels so he can't hide, and can't dodge your attacks in turn. After winning though, it's revealed that part of why Rika's been such a hard-ass here is his superior is even worse than him, and was told he'll get punished for losing as it shows Sharo's own military power as weak, and is just as baffled by Lan's explanation of why he and Megaman are so strong are because of their bond, something he lacks with Searchman. He at least takes it into consideration, and we get Search Soul from it. The last Red Sun Soul is another Netopia competitor, our old friend Raoul from Battle Network 2, alongside his Navi Thunderman, who are excited for another chance to match wits with us. However, not everyone's on board with that. Raoul's tribe leader, because, Raoul's apparently supposed to be Native American, has it out for us, casting upon us a curse with the declaration, Gresply Necrom.
Once again from the guidebook and Greg Sepelak snarking, it doesn't seem to have the same effect as saying knee. Though personally I would have gone with a different line.
Klaatu, Murata,
But yeah, Mega Man's cursed and losing HP fast. Raoul can help, but while we're affected, we need to get items from the Nintopia area to undo it, the Curse Doll, and 4 Marks of Worth. Since the HP drops fast, you need to avoid every encounter you can, or otherwise go into Roll Soul if you have it to recharge your health that way. Once that's done, bring everything to Thunderman near the entrance to Yumland's net, and he calls down the thunder to destroy the curse, allowing us to recharge for a proper match, which once more isn't too difficult than how he played in Battle Network 2. And because I rely heavily on wood chips like Lance and Boomerang, and Thunderman likes to stick to the back row, this is not a hard match at all for me, regardless of the general difficulty level. After the match ends, Raoul gets the old man to apologize, and we get Thunder Soul out of it. On to the Blue Moon exclusives. Our next match is against Junkman, who is a solo net Navi.
I'd say we've not seen one of those in a while, but Shade Man was a thing here.
What leads us to meeting our opponent, though, is an alert from the officials of Junk Data congregating in Yumland that they need clearing out. We go to do so, only for Mega Man to get crushed under it. We jack him out, only for Mega Man to begin acting oddly, and for it to turn out that Mega Man suffered a case of body jacking by Junkman. As is explained, Junkman is literally made up of junk data from deleted Navis, such congregating in him and allowing him to have a semblance of sentience, but his body is unstable, thus one to steal Mega Man's to get something more permanent. Fortunately, Lan can perform enough manual control as a net operator to send Junkman straight back to the junkyard, though he fights us all along the way with the controls to traveling inverted, and he starts every net battle in the confused status. And worse, when you have to break junk to get back to Mega Man's core in the junkyard, he intentionally causes viruses to spawn and stop us, so Land would be forced to be stuck with him. It doesn't work, and Mega Man's back, with Junkman complaining about how he never seems to get everything and is forced to be alone by his existence as junk, as a means of excusing his selfish actions and callousness. He leaves, making Mega Man muse on if there is a way to help him, remembering something from when he was amalgamated with Junkman of seeing something in a Buddha statue. We're given permission to approach the large Buddha statue in the Yumland region and find the kindness data inside, which we offer to him at the arena, and he rejects, engaging him in battle with Mega Man's body on the line.
I need an adult?
I am an adult.
All of Junkman's attacks, as they expect, tie themselves to throwing things at Mega Man, visually them all being scraps of junk data, and it takes a while to get through simply due to their number. After the battle ends, Junkman expects Mega Man to finish the job, but he doesn't, and Junkman just doesn't understand. He's never experienced kindness, mercy, or anything positive, and he can't accept that, thus he just self-destructs, the remains of his existence amalgamating into Junk Soul. With that, we come to the last potential Double Soul you can collect, and the last of the exclusive matches, with the return of Chod and Proto Man into the mix. Only, there's a big problem with that.
And to quote the guidebook one last time, Chod, you fool! He used a dark chip.
This side story is the basis behind the Dark Proto Man storyline that's garnered immense praise by the Mega Man fandom, as seen depicted in the Access anime that gave the best character development to the Navi operator pair that could have come. And even in its own turn, the Blue Moon side story is done pretty well in its own right. Chod got sloppy, had a dark chip in their possession, and rather than see Proto Man destroyed, he sought to save him, but the dark chip instead sending him rampaging. He needs his Navi, no, he needs his friend back, and needs Lan and Mega Man's help to do it, or even if they can't, then the best thing they could do in that circumstance is be the ones who could put him down. Unfortunately, Proto Man is so powerful due to the dark chip that he escapes the login lockouts Chod placed on his PT, and Proto Man heads into the internet. When we follow him, we find a bunch of barrier gates have gone off throughout the internet, Chod having seen these before down here, and knows the hiding places of the various keys to the gates. It is a frustrating delay tactic, though, which makes an already tedious run through the internet into something even more frustrating. Eventually, though, we corner a few Nebula Navis in Internet 6 that have captured the rampaging Proto Man to take advantage of his Dark Soul state to induct him as a popular Darkloid. And after a bunch of Heal Navis virus battles, Chod uses Mega Man as a conduit to have a true heart-to-heart with Proto Man, which relieves him of the Dark Soul.
And yes, unsurprisingly with how I praise it and condemn this game, this is done better in Access.
Like the other returning Navis, the battle with Proto Man doesn't really have anything new, outside of his rarely used super technique Delta Ray Edge, which I don't even have footage of him using.
Delta Ray Edge is also a Giga chip, but it's also a chip I can't really get to work for some reason. The only time I've ever seen it used was in Mega Man Access, where it became another one of my examples of the recurring trope of the triangle attack, or delta attacks, or the 3-stroke sword attacks, and we don't even actually have a trope name for sword attacks that create triangles, as far as I know, despite how frequently such appears in Japanese media.
To be honest, beyond the romantic entanglement that creates Roll Soul and the long friendship that creates Gut Soul, gaining Proto Soul from Chod and Proto Man is the third most appropriate unison of souls they could have done due to how Chod and Lan constantly push each other to be better than they are. And the wrap-up where Mega Man does gain it reflects this quite appropriately, with such completing our walk through Mega Man's forms for this game. The second to last of the Navi challenges for this tournament returns to a representative from Sharo, with Coldman and his operator Chilsky, who hates the heat.
I understand completely.
But is a complete idiot, as the reason why he's so hot is because he's wearing a winter parka meant to keep one alive in the coldest of climates, in a region where it's currently the later end of spring.
He could literally take off the jacket, and he would not be baking alive. And this makes everything that follows this pretty damn stupid.
As what Chilsky does is he goes back to Sharo and hacks the world's weather control system,
which was previously established to exist in Battle Network 2,
and sets it to snow and cool every part of the planet it can, and drop the temperature below survivable levels. To stop them, Lan and Megaman have to go to Sharo and get in each of the antennas to undo his tampering, with the additional danger of a dropping temperature.
This temperature sensor can confuse some people, as 36 degrees? That's not life-threatening, just a bit cold. Those who recognize that this temperature reading is in Celsius know that is actually in the high 90s in temperature and shouldn't be like that in a cold climate. Well, the answer to that is this temperature meter, that's actually Lan's core body temperature, as he's out playing in the snow and dripping cold without any protection. And if someone's core body temperature drops too low, they lose consciousness and can potentially die. However, you better damn hope you fight Chillsky and Coldman the first time through the game, as if you don't, you are screwed out of an HP memory and regular up that entire round.
See, what happens is the 2 upgrade items are locked off in the second of 4 Sharo antenna nets that are part of Chillsky and Coldman's event, and to get to those, you need to get a shovel to clear out the snow from around the physical locations of the antennas. However, the shovel only spawns during this event. If you happen to be unlucky enough to not fight Coldman in the normal difficulty run, you will never be able to get it until your second lap around on hard difficulty, or if you are really unlucky, you could possibly not encounter him until very hard mode New Game++, or possibly not even then either. It's honestly frustrating that it happens and handicaps you even making it through the first round of the game, but at least you don't lose any chance at the upgrade items if you just start on New Game++, and can pick them up alongside any others you might have missed.
As really, the blue mystery data they're in does respawn, but there's also a handicap to that. Each blue mystery data, emptied of the original contents in New Game Plus, then generates spare extra Zenny and bug frags for use in cleaning out the warehouses of those supplies. At least from the retailers that use those currencies. As Zenny and bug flag collection is always like pulling teeth in these games, that is appreciated, but not in a scenario where we're blocked off from getting that New Game Plus reward despite us doing nothing wrong.
And to make the situation worse, the tampering in each antenna must be undone by installing a fire-type chip in each of them. Fireshot C, Flameline 1F, Heat Breath K, and Black Bomb K. Some of which are very hard to get, so you better make sure you grab them beforehand. With the antennas fixed, it'll take some time for things to return to normal, so we have to fight Coldman in the cold. And to make things worse, fighting Coldman means dealing with ice panels, and also ice blocks he makes to block attacks and prevent you from stealing panels. To our benefit, he does attempt to slam them at us, which we can evade and block off our back row, which we didn't really need, but it makes it a bit more difficult to evade these blasts of extreme cold that do damage in and of themselves. But fortunately his techs make him weak to the abilities of Wind, Guts, Junk, Thunder, and ironically Aqua styles, so there's a lot to use against him depending on your battle chip and style builds. With Coldman beaten, the sun comes out, Chillsky once more not able to take the heat, and the officials summarily arresting him for his global terrorism. And even better, they're gonna make sure he gets sent to a prison in the middle of Africa, where he'll have to suffer in the heat forever, instead of logically, as I said before, having taken off his jacket to begin with.
And thus we get to the final tournament story and Navi, and it's the one that prevented me from properly completing everything. Kendo Man.
Kendo Man is Mr. Famous's Navi for the game, him having traveled the world again to go around helping people, and he ended up being another Nefrica representative for things. Famous suggesting we go Greek Kendo Man on the nets, and that is where the game-breaking bug comes in. As I described at the beginning of all this, Kendo Man forces us to go through his training sessions against Kendo training machines before he'll even speak to us, and if you get the bugged version of this, you cannot pass by them, as it won't give you the commands that will allow you to defeat them. You can try to reset your save and try again, sometimes that works, but to reiterate, it didn't in my last lap of Red Sun, so I couldn't go any further. If you do manage to make it past that, we get to talk to Kendo Man, and he apologizes for being a jerk, as he's normally pretty passionate about training Navis who come to him. With the greeting done, we get to the match, only for Famous and Kendo Man to not show up. An incident has started up in Nefrica where hostages have been taken, and Famous has been taken out by a former student of his that didn't want to put in the work to get good, using the tracking tags and a bunch of lions to transmit a signal that allows him to control them. so we've got to sneak around him into a statue to disable his control. With that done, we can finally have our match, and Kendo Man honestly plays a lot like Proto Man, and to an extent Yamato Man from Battle Network 3, with his direct sword strikes. But beat him, and Famous congratulates us on another student learning to surpass their limits. With this, all of the tournaments are over with, and with the urgency to resolve the coming crisis, we're rushed to Naxx's base in South America? Whatever, we're briefed about what's going on, with the need for the best Navi and NetOp to man the trip up there, with another NetOp from an opposing tournament helping to align transmission of the satellites needed for clear transmission. However, Nebula chooses now to attack, creating roadblocks in the net that are preventing Naxxa from getting the computing power from across the world for their final calculations, which we need to destroy. We get a transmitter that helps Naxxa keep an eye on us, and also the Red Sun or Blue Moon gigachips, the first one we can collect. As we destroy all the transmission towers though, eventually we're directed to reach a part of the park net we've never been able to reach before, as it requires us to go through the one town net area that we've also never been to before, as it's been locked off as well. Make sure to check the entire region, as there's an invisible bridge that has the Gunsol 2 chips stored across from it, and a quick jaunt through the internet lets us reach it, alongside a Nebula Navi that tries to pull a self-destruct gambit. It fails thanks to Gutsman roll and glide throwing up protective barriers, but it knocks out the transmitter Regal was using to keep track of us. With us supposedly dead, it means it's time for Plan Z! Send his Navi Laserman up into the asteroid to deal with it. Yuicho, however, has had his doubts for some time with Regal's conduct and decides to call him out for it. And since it's the 11th hour anyways, Regal decides to reveal that he is in fact the head of Nebula and wants to use the asteroid to rule the world!
Now, admittedly, controlling the asteroid would give him a pretty mean Damocles sword to hold over everyone. But on the other hand, if the asteroid doesn't have what he thinks, or he can't take control of it with his malicious conduct, then he just doomed everyone. Yeah, free tip from the Evil Overlord's guidebook. When you want to rule the world with the power of darkness, and the entire world is in danger by something outside of your control, you don't sabotage the efforts to save the frickin' planet. You only backstab the good guys after the planet is safe, not before. Doing it before you actually save the world is just idiotic.
Before that, though, there's several other things to do, even before the post-game factors in. In Undernet 4, you can now go and have a true encounter with Shademan, who is holed up in a coffin waiting his next revival from Ghost Data, and right outside of it are Solar Boy Django and his sunflower companion Otenko.
How the hell are they here in cyberspace? I mean, I know that happens to a couple characters in Beast Plus thanks to a reverse synchro chip, but that reality-bending mechanic isn't exactly in play here.
Actually, not even they really know how they did it. They were just drawn here by the power of a powerful vampire who they can defeat if they can power up their pile driver, which requires you find a light sensor they dropped earlier back in the internet, but Akil Navi found it before we did, and it costs 10,000 zenny to buy it off of him.
Now, this is endgame / post-game content, so I'm not as against having the expense here as I am against the heavy expenses in the early game, especially as by this point you should have saved up a lot more, but it's still compounded by the issue of resource collection, this game always being like pulling teeth when it comes to zenny gains, especially in this game above all the others. Because there's no Navi customizer program you can eventually get to improve zenny gains at all in this game. And by most of these expenses being tripled per game version and the New Game Plus system, this is the least fun it's ever been. The only compensation for that is you collect every mystery data in the game on your first lap, which, as I explained when discussing the problem with the Coldman story, you can't. Then in the second and third playthroughs, every mystery data you got before, then being replaced with mystery data containing free zenny. But considering the base playthrough expense in the first lap equals that of previous games, it is either not enough or far too late to help, depending on the differing opinions on the issue.
So pay the fine and take the sensor back to Django, who can use it to burn Shademan with the light of the sun and ruin his regeneration coffin. You get the Gundel Soul 3 battle chip from them, so you can finally use Pile Driver. Use Higsby's chip order service to get second copies from them in your first lap, and you can repeat that in the subsequent playthroughs to get the 4 you need for a functional, but not perfect, battle chip folder. Before you leave though, check the coffin to get the Nebula ID, which like in past games unlocks all the security doors to mystery data that's been locked off in every NetBAP until now, which have your usual end-of-game upgrades hidden within them.
However, if this is your first lap through, just be aware, you don't get everything that upgrades Mega Man, and I'm not just talking the Soul System. Oh, you will get the Navi Customizer expansion parts to give you a 25-block map, but you won't be able to get every Navi Customizer program. Can't get every Navi Customizer upgrade that allows you to turn the Customizer programs to create the best Customizer loadouts. Cannot obtain all the HP memories, reg-ups, or even the subship expansion blocks. That once more takes 3 playthroughs to do, and checking entirely different locations than before for each of them.
After you destroy the dormant Shademan, though, he becomes ghost data like the others, but special ghost data that has a green mystery data in the back row. It contains the Dark Chip Bug Charge or Bug Curse, depending on version, that you need to collect for later. You can also obtain this from green mystery data in the battle against Laserman's ghost data in Undernet 5, and Undernet 5 is a place we've not gotten a chance to go to before, because it's actually locked off by a gate that requires all 6 double souls to release. In Undernet 5, you can find a net dealer with the last possible upgrades and missing powerful chips that you can buy, and also base if you've completed your standard chip library.
Oh, and as I forgot to mention, good luck if you missed collecting a base or second tier chip for your chip library on your later playthroughs, as once you move on to another difficulty level, there is no way to go back to collect that type of chip again, meaning you'll have to start your entire progress over again if you miss even one.
Who has been left here as a statue since we last defeated him, and we awaken him, and as I said when I reviewed Battle Network 3, having lost a sense of who and what he was, beyond his lust for battle. Just a shambling corpse, forever propped up by malice.
It is presumed that his own hate for humanity drew Dark Chip and Dark Soul power to him, which allowed him to be revived from his previous death this time around. As otherwise, there's no explanation. Battle Network 1, he is a random encounter. Battle Network 2, we fought either his clones or dealt him a blow when he found his hideout. Battle Network 3 was heavily influenced by his story, and was meant to be his closure. But Battle Network 4, it's just dark power this and that with the guy, and it's just sad. There was nuance to why he sought battles before, but now there's nothing.
And worse, he's lost all capabilities at speaking with proper grammar.
Seriously, did anyone do any quality assurance testing of this game?
Base is of course Base. Base is hard. He always is hard, but this time he doesn't have life aura protecting him anymore, so he hits even harder instead of just tanking your attacks. He has his own sword variant called Dark Arm Blade in addition to his previous Shooting Buster and Darkness Overload attacks, but his signature move in the Dark Soul-focused games is Hell's Rolling. And it's universally agreed, Hell's Rolling is awesome even if it hurts.
And because I only have footage of me fighting him in Blue Moon, well, because I am such a fan of Ryotaka Misaki's manga, I had to do a bit of a tribute to it when I was playing against Base to finish him off. Those who have read the manga, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
From this you get Base's Giga Chip, just Base in Red Sun, and Bass Annalie in Blue Moon, with Bass Annalie being the better of the two in my opinion as it recreates Hell's Rolling. Base, however, now that he's reawoken, won't let this end, feeling an even greater source of dark power coming from deeper within the Undernet thanks to him making contact with Mega Man's Dark Soul and copying it with his get ability, I presume. So we have to go chase him. However, we can't do it immediately. First, we need to collect every base and SP level Navi chip.
Again, because of the messed up data in these games, doing that for some of them is literally impossible.
But on top of that, we also need to collect 5 evil chips, which are classed as mega chips but can only be used by Mega Man while he is in Dark Soul, which locks the entrance to the Undernet beneath the Undernet, from which all true Darkloid Navis and Dark Chips are born. The first evil chip, as I said, can be found from fighting Shademan and Laserman's ghost data, but there are 4 more after it. Anubis, Blackwing, and Muramasa can be found from finding heal Navis in Undernet 5 after you defeat Base, though you need to log out and log back in for them to show up, and require you last through 10 round survival and challenges to get them. The last is Element Dark, which can only be found by S-ranking a battle with the Megaman.exe virus, which can only be found in Internet 6 on very hard mode. And it's a rare encounter at that. This will take some time and several rounds with lock enemy subjects to get it. Get them all, and the gate to Black Earth opens, and then has its own challenges. There's a shadow virus down here that can only be harmed by sword chips, meaning Blue Moon with Proto Soul actually has a much easier time down here than Red Sun players, since fusing a Proto Soul gives you an instant wide sword to use, plus step sword to not make area stealing a requirement. But reach Black Earth 2, and you come across the real challenge of the area, as you have to fight the Dark Souls of every Net Navi that is fused with Mega Man into a double soul form, and each of them acting as Gutsman and Aquaman did when they were possessed by Mega Man's Dark Soul after the second tournament, meaning they have all your customizer programs and battle chips at their disposal, with the defeat of each one of them destroying a black mirror with them, and also giving up a DS Navi chip to complete the trinity of them.
And the DS Navi chips are worthless. They only work when Mega Man is in Dark Soul, or when a dark hole generated by the hole and element dark chip is on the field, and are powered up the same way the SP or Soul Power chips are, defeating the related Navis with high rankings. Thus, they only have value to a Dark Soul player, since we already got a more powerful and less debilitating version of the same chip earlier, and powered up to its max at that, when hunting for the ghost data. Hell, most players don't even need to come down here to get them. If you have a dark hole in the field while fighting the Ghost Data Navi, and you S-rank the encounter, then the Ghost Data will reward you with the DS version of the chip by default.
At the end of these trials, however, is one more final mirror where you must face off against your true Dark Soul, which, considering the second tournament and the story event you need to do when facing the final boss, you should have done a bare minimum of 24 times. The reward for doing so is the Soul Cleanse Customizer program, which removes any Dark Soul influence from Mega Man if you happen to use any Dark Chips, and the Hub Batch Customizer program as well as just a freebie. And if you log out and come back all the way to Black Earth, then Base HP will show up for your final battle with him before you can face the Super Boss version of the end boss.
And what do you know? The game is too bugged to let that happen either. I spent 2 hours hunting for base in Black Earth, burned sneak runs, installed the customizer program that made it so it could only got rare encounters, and walked the entire map well over 24 times, and I got jack all for my trouble. Obviously, I only did this with Blue Moon because I couldn't go down there in Red Sun as I got locked out of progression due to that game bug, but this one was more irritating as I was so damn close. And because of that, no chance to get an S rank from fighting base HP that will get me the last game's Giga Chip. I throw up my hands in defeat, people.
Anyways, we make our way back to Naxa, where Regal blocks us from trying to jack in to stop him by blowing up the bridge to the main transmission platform. However, the note Yuichiro gave us earlier reveals Yuichiro's backup plan. By jacking into the power supply system's control console, we can backdoor our way into the transmission system and send Mega Man up to the asteroid. Here we need to then solve a good old floor puzzle to unlock the gates to each respective region, while fighting black holes that occasionally manifest that resets our progress through triggering all the numerical panels if we're not careful. Each panel set mimics star systems the asteroids traveled through, which is kind of interesting but not expanded upon. Get to the 4th region and we encounter Laser Man, who like Regal is still in the whole evil be thou my good bit, and literally tries the Darth Vader gambit on us, since we got this stuff open for them, but clearly is the superior Navi with its immense power.
And just shut up already! This speech worked once. Once! When I first played this game nearly 2 decades ago. But between both versions, I have played this story over 12 times in my life. Closer to 24, in fact, when you include all the times I had to reset my cartridge from 0 to avoid one of the goddamn bugs I've been showcasing here. Bare minimum 6 of that were my original cartridge runs, and then, of course, when I do them all over again here. From 0 for this review. Not counting any time that I may have died and had to redo this fight. I am literally sick of hearing this pretentious oversimplification of the complex and complicated reality that is the human scale of morality, which tries to make excuses for people acting with actual malice or moral cowardice just because they can. Just get out of my way so I can end this already!
Laserman's attacks are specifically designed to lock you into corners before he slams you with hard hits or ambushes. The most annoying is Cross Laser and Star Break Laser, which crack panels and flood most of your area, before following it up with Beam Lasers that strike forward, or Dark Laser that spawns a dark hole that regenerates Laserman's health, which you just cannot get rid of unless you change the panel type. Easiest done if you build folders to support Wood Soul, as you need a panel changer anyways, or Gut Soul because cracking panels. Laserman, though, likes to stand in the middle of his field as long as you don't start stealing any panels, so if you can, pile driver him hard and fast to break his health, and then life sword him to death. This lets us into the control room, where we receive an incoming message from the big giant head.
Ugh, I have waited so many videos to say that at Duo's expense. Oh, yeah, this is Duo.
For those not familiar with the original Mega Man games, the original Duo appeared in Mega Man 8, arguably the worst of the original Mega Man games, and one so bad it killed the original time period's game content for over a decade, with Mega Man 9 not coming into existence until 12 years later in 2008. In it, the alien-robot Duo lands on Earth after fighting some dark entity, while fragments of said entity rain down on the Earth and start playing havoc as they infect other robots, with Wily then collecting them for use in its own nefarious schemes. While Duo's existence permits the plot to exist there, he has no true role in the plot as he's out of commission for almost all of it, only truly getting involved to take the dark power back off the planet after Mega Man took care of everything for him.
The game was the first to make use of animated cutscenes, ones that, amusingly enough, were the second animation project of Studio Zebek, the company later responsible for the Battle Network series tie-in anime as well. They got their foot in the door fast and early on that. It's just too bad that the game's voice acting, at least the American release, was complete and utter garbage.
This Duo, in turn, is playing off a similar premise as his counterpart, an AI seeking the elimination of dark power from the universe, and brought here because its system has detected a mass volume of dark power coming from Earth. No doubt born from the unrest of the last year via Wily's activities and the general scorn that's come from an upheaval and change in society, and also the dark power of the dark chips from Regal's activities. Thus, Duo intends to wipe out this malice before it can go and affect the universe, using Mega Man's own Dark Soul as an object lesson by forcing us to fight it again, before saying that despite Mega Man's valiant efforts in fighting the Dark Soul that he was forcibly infested with, all he's done is suppress it and not destroy it.
Japan has this recurring thing about evil in its properties, in that it never truly dies, just going on to infest other people. Because, again, the true origin of the evils of man, objectively, come from treating others without a care to how your actions affect them or yourself. Or worse, taking pleasure from the act itself and the pain of others. To act with actual malice in taking what you want from others or denying them the same things you have yourself. Whether it be stealing what is theirs, denying their rights as you sate your lust, perform acts of vengeance, and so on. Malice that forms the root of all evils is born when you no longer care about anything but what you, and solely you, want. But of course, most people are not like that. We want things. We get angry over slights, injustices, people harming others with their own lack of consideration. We have our own desires we want to sate, and feel our own sense of validation be realized. But we're not by default assholes about it, nor by default these things malicious. But the greatest true source of evil in the world always comes from those who are taking what they want, doing what they want, without regard for how it harms others or because it harms others. And to them, it's justified. Because those people, they're not the same as them. They're instead the other. The thing that isn't like them. The thing that doesn't have what they have. So how could they be on the same level as them? The thing to be despised and taken advantage of because they are different and unequal from themselves. So they view it's their right to take from the other. They don't care. Do you? And it's easy. It's so easy to fall into the trap of not caring, of just giving up and letting it win, but you can only give so much of yourself to actively opposing it. But it doesn't take that much to resist it. Because the thing about malice is, it's always the weapon of choice by cowards, the lazy, and control freaks, too afraid to try and obtain what they want through their own will. So, they have to lie, cheat, and steal to get it from others, and just refuse to acknowledge the harm and consequence in doing so. It is doing the easy thing, but they always forget to weigh the consequences of taking the easy way out. And in reality, the consequences of one's actions always come sooner or later as one's sins are exposed and weighed. Why so many fictional stories in Japanese media can break themselves is they often do fail either proportionate response or deny that karma of condemnation to those guilty of sin.
Or alternatively, what we have here, and the Battle Network series' entire use of the Dark Chip storyline, a complete lack of nuance and thematic backbone towards the issue and its expression in Battle Network 4. Sure, Dark Soul being the debilitating, easy, coward's way out of strong-arming a solution to battle fits the true evil darkness is at its core weak and only propagating itself up and pretending to be strong, but it's not truly tying through all of this. Because most of the acts of malice are being committed by either members of Nebula whose reasons for following the path of evil are indistinct and unjustified, or it's common people being complete idiots on their own without any other influence.
And I'm not saying that evil doesn't take advantage of idiocy or apathy to further its own ends. It certainly does in order to spread malice as they're tricked into harming people. But the person being evil or inciting evil cannot be stupid, as otherwise you muddy the issue of actually depicting their actions as harmful and malicious. And nearly every act of malice committed in this game by the bad guys is caused by them literally being too stupid to figure out how to get what they actually want, and their idiocy is at the bigger forefront in their malice than the actual malice that is the motivator behind them. All Sparkman's operator needed to do was put in a little effort to get everything he wanted, since he put in a lot to cheat his way to an attempted victory. All Burnerman's operator had to do was show a little respect to someone with the same interests as them to learn from them how to improve their own talent. Vinny and RC could have gotten better self-promotion by actually showing off their acting talents, or lack thereof, by making their net battles a performance and then exaggerating their responses, making their whole net battle to a show where if they lost, it'd be remembered and possibly cover their butt by saying they felt the performance would build hype for their next if they didn't achieve their victory. You know, like the ending to Rocky. And all Coldman's operator needed to do was take off his damn jacket like a normal person. These, I don't see as villains and uncaring sociopaths committing and spreading malice. I see them as idiots too stupid to actually grasp the simple, easy steps they need to take to get what they want without screwing themselves over. Because the key here is not that evil equals stupid, but those blindly following evil are stupid. And if they're not following anyone or being stupid, it becomes more difficult to cast the ignorant as committing actual malice, even when they are.
This is all why I actually like a hell of a lot more Rockman.exe and Stream's depiction of both the Dark Trip storyline and also Duo's tests of humanity to judge their worth. The latter seen in Stream, which was never imported, but I watched a lot of subbed. With Duo there, after the defeat of Regal and Access, coming into the picture similarly to how he does in the games, as unable to render a clear judgment on matters as there is decent balance of those just living their lives, those living for themselves, and those living for others within the world. So the judging of character of the race takes more time to determine what the truth of them is. In the series, Duo's servant Slur bestows upon random people, or just lets loose in the wild, asteroid net navies, recreations of defeated navies or completely new navies, and their clashes or assistance of Duo's chosen play out the longer arc, while the core cast still has to deal with those using dark chips towards their own ends. Because there's more time with each of the focused characters, there is a lot more time to breathe the nuances of such a battle of will versus inhibition that is required for such a narrative to work. You try to rush it or shift the paradigm haphazardly, it doesn't work. There's a hell of a lot of side character stories in Battle Network 4, but the sheer number of them and the constant contrast between them prevents the development of the needed nuance, as if it's a new character, they only could do the bare bones with them. Or if it's from someone we knew that were part of the Double Soul system, there would always be an outside instigator that would do it for dumb reasons that are not expanded upon. If you want to do a commentary on the nature of good versus evil, with the end of the game having you fight some arbiter of absolute good or justice finding some verdict upon us, then you had to have decompressed this a lot more, and also not tied it down to a goddamn mandatory play the new game plus twice to see everything story gimmick.
So yeah, Duo doesn't work here either, as like Laserman's protestations of the power of evil, Duo likewise comes off as the opposite pretentious extreme, as he comes here out of nowhere and judges us beyond salvation, just because people are people and our wants, needs, and desires all pull against our own morality range. It's the same reason why we haven't gotten rid of violent conflict and war. Jackasses keep knocking the buffet table of peace over either because they stole a piece of cake and try to get away with it, or had it stolen from them.
Round and round and round it goes. Where it stops nobody knows, but it all adds up.
It's like, if you want an actual nuanced look into the nature of malice twisting the world away from peaceful reformation, watch Gundam 00. It's pretty coherent on such, including how good intentions can be used against one's own actions to allow evil its own route to power. But this ain't adding anything to the conversation, nor if this was an oversimplification for little kids, in any way succeeding in teaching anyone properly about such, especially with how the mandatory accessories and supplementary merchandise needed to get the game to work in and of themselves showed that the game's core construction was conceived with actual malice towards consumers. That alone undermines any argument you could make.
Anyways, on to fighting Duo, who to fight us actually manifests for himself a giant robot body. Duo is literally the worst boss to fight in the history of the Mega Man franchise. As I have been complaining about all game, there is a grand total of 0 battleship folders in the game which will allow you to in any way deal with Duo or make the fight easy. You will burn your library trying to damage him, only to be left with just your charge shots to finish the job, with most common builds you could use. And the only program advance that has a chance of doing anything consistently to him is just Life Sword, as everything else either requires multi-letter codes to them so you can only fit one in the folder, have special conditions to use, or for the enemy you're fighting to actually have floor panels under them to work. His first variant starts with 2000 health, and his post-base SP Super Boss variant, Duo SP, bears 3500 health. He crushes you under a giant fist that can demolish a third of your health per hit, shoot a chest laser at you, shout at you, fires missiles and bombs constantly, and he just keeps moving, making it especially hard to hit him, and it is not helped by how hard he himself hits.
Now, there are a few ways to actually get around Duo's issues and deal a ton of damage, but none of them are exactly easy or guaranteed to work, nor do they have the capacity to build effective chip folders around them.
The easiest and also the hardest is actually to abuse the Mega Chip Super Vulcan. Go into Metal Soul, use the Battle Chip Double Point to lose 3 panels to boost the power of the Super Vulcan by 60 points, and then boost it by another 30 with attack plus 30 to give it a base power of 100. Charge up the Super Vulcan thanks to Metal Soul's ability, and you have a single battle chip that will do 2400 damage.
The obvious problem with this is most of the chips used there can only have one of them mega chips, and it's the closest we get to a Gator or double hero strategy in this game. A folder using those has to rely a lot on stall or chip searching tactics, arguably best complemented by Bass Analyze since it hits 4 times for 160 damage on each, that can be well boosted by other plus chips beyond its base 640 damage ceiling. But even that way against Duo SP, you'd still need to deal with another third of his health. And that is a Blue Moon exclusive strategy.
The second way, oriented more for Red Sun players, is actually not that much different. The Gigachip Holy Dream shoots off a 50 attack point blast for every holy panel it devours. So the strategy there is to steal the front row, then use the Battleship Sanctuary to get a full 12 panels out of for you. Then, like before, use Double Point on Holy Dream, with an attack plus 30 chip on it so every attack does 140 base damage, and set it to absorb all 12 holy panels for a potential damage of 1680. If you do this while somehow being in full synchro, it is the one and only way to near instantly kill Duo SP, as the damage would double to 3360, just 140 short of his full Super Boss health.
But that one is the same difficulty in that you have to wait it out while the component pieces fall into place, and that's also assuming you can get off or stay in full synchro. And that duo doesn't crack the panels you need on top of that. The advantage of casting Sanctuary, though, is it allows you to more easily wait through the long haul to take him down, as it halves the damage you take from all his attacks, which in turn makes the recovery chips or roll soul more effective in revealing your HP. But both of these strategies completely 100% fail if you at any time miss once. And trust me, you are going to miss with them, as if you don't use Thunder Soul, then the only easy means of paralysis is the Thunder Battle Chip, and those things move so slowly across the battle area that, no joke, every time I have ever used them to stop him from moving, they missed. Every time. Every single time. How is that even possible?
Honestly though, as I mentioned before, Wood Soul turtling up on a grass panel while you use Charge Swords constantly on Duo to drain his HP is one of the more effective, and Blue Moon specific, strategies. But no battle chip folder with any synergy and flow to it has any chance of generating a straightforward chip combo that will take him down easily. A horrible contrast against other games, as the only way to do it, the only legitimate way anyone has found, literally goes against the very premise of the Battle Network game's battle chip folder. The more chips you go out of your way to collect, the more you will find ones whose chip codes all work together, and by building a chip folder that synergizes as many good chips together as you can, you will be rewarded by your efforts and playstyle with them to be able to conquer any challenge the game throws at you. Any attempt to beat Duo, any at all, doesn't matter what difficulty level you're playing on, is in complete conflict with that premise and the ideal that one can build a folder that can deal with anything as long as you put in the effort to do so. Battle Networks 1, 2, and 3 all had a strategy that did that, and secondary ones that completely worked until you could assemble the chips you needed to get good at the challenges you were faced with. But Battle Network 4 does not. Not just because it locks off your ability to actually complete your chip library until you've played the game 3 times, but also because the 4 mechanics, bosses, and challenges themselves constantly act in defiance of ever creating such harmony within the folders you build. You never end up achieving it. From start to finish, it is just that messed up. Regardless, when you defeat Duo, his body blows, but he claims it's too late. His ship has already entered the Earth's gravity well and is being drawn down to the planet on its own. Duo getting out of the way so Mega Man can make one last attempt to divert it from its path. And in the cheesiest thing they could do, Land and Mega Man's friends and allies rally the people to cheer on Mega Man in his efforts to save them all. The sound of their cheers actually resonating loud enough to break past the distortions of air to make it reverberate out into space, which boosts Mega Man so much he manages to go into full synchro and unlock the strength boosts of his hub style. Hell, even Regal has moved to use his cybernetic body, oh yeah, he's a cyborg, I forgot to mention that, to bridge the electrical cable that shorts out at a critical moment, with it all allowing Mega Man to succeed in turning the asteroid away from Earth, and Duo to reconsider his judgment of Earth. After all, if the entire world can unite behind supporting the struggles of one person, maybe they're all possible of resisting the influence of their own inner darkness in time. Which just leaves dealing with Regal, and as you might expect from my prior words, I don't buy the excuses Regal tries to make about how people's actions are only evil from a subjective viewpoint, as everyone does bad things in their lives. Why not just accept that, embrace it, and stop lying to oneself, and join with building Regal's utopia?
My god. Dr. Regal is trying to create the world from the Purge. Which is again why this doesn't work. Evil is not subjective. It is objective. It is a judgment of how selfish actions negatively affect those around them and the lack of care towards the consequences of one's actions when it affects everyone around them. Doing bad things does not by default make one evil, thus Regal's protest that everyone is just as bad as him, and citing things like Lan and Mega Man defeating that guard Navi earlier, or Charg's merciless deletion of enemy Navis, rings as hollow both-sidism, as neither would have done that if they were not being forced to by the situations they were in, whose root cause is the actions of someone acting maliciously. The true blame then goes to those who incite that series of actions, or enables them to be committed, when they could have stopped them outright. And in that case, the blame then shifts back on Regal in both because he, his organization, and his minions were responsible for all he's citing.
But of course, for him it all goes back to his dad, Dr. Wily, whose robotics research was rejected in favor of the digital utopia everyone lives in now. Even though robotics technology still exists in this setting, as I've said before, thus he and his research should not have been rejected, as the setting claims for Regal to then feel like the world scorned him enough to be driven to darkness and spreading his own malice and revenge. But Regal has no intention of being tried by a world he views as criminals, and thus... After the credits, we have a post-game scene of Lan getting the trophy he was denied in the final tournaments, as the pair muse on the need for them to help build a world without actual malice. Yeah, good luck with that. With the crowd cheering them on to show off their skill.
Mega Man Battle Network 4, as I said, is the worst Battle Network game. It would be passable if it weren't for how they did the New Game Plus gimmick, but the game is bugged beyond all belief, has its capabilities screwed over from mandatory merchandise pay-to-win mechanics the West never got, and its thematic story is so screwed up by most of the game's content being interchangeable side stories that there is no true cohesive whole that even bothers to justify itself. As the villain's motivations and backstory for why they are trapped in one speech that comes after everything is already over that doesn't allow the story of it to actually thematically breathe, like Wily does in Battle Networks 1 and 3. I'd say it's almost as bad as Sean's from Battle Network 2, but at least they, 1, don't try to bend over backwards and justify it like they did Sean's. I did it because I hate the world because I don't have any friends even though my co-conspirators are my friends thing. And 2, they didn't try to walk it back with the retcon about him being manipulated by an outside force and doing everything he did. At the very least from Battle Network 5's content, Regal wholeheartedly believes that everything else is like him in their own selfish, malicious conduct, and are just lying to themselves in order to then infest others and spread the influence of Dark Souls as proof of his disingenuous assumption. Yeah, that's the actual end goal of his scheme, to make everyone malicious like him, like he thinks they already are.
Seriously, if the Battle Network games ever get their own collection, then this is the only one I'm never playing again. Because as I keep saying, this thing is so broken that access to cheat mechanics is mandatory to get around basically every problem it has. And the Battle Network fan community has more or less embraced doing such since forever. The Wii U Virtual Console release apparently fixes Woodman Stage and gives you a series of mod tools that allow you to access what you could have from the e-reader cards, but I've heard nothing about them fixing the Kendo Man glitch there. But with how many times I have to play this to complete it, yeah, no, I literally wrote this entire review from memory without having to review any of the footage for recap purposes. It is seared that deeply into my brain, and I enjoy little to nothing of that. The purpose of New Game Plus is always, when for someone wants to, on their own, return to a game they enjoyed and be rewarded for the fruits of their prior labors with fun extras or the ability to retain what you earned. When the first lap through, you had the possibility to earn nearly everything as opposed to sectioning it off to make it required you go through it again. By making it mandatory and splitting the content up, the greater whole of any argument the content was trying to make is just damaged beyond repair. I say without hyperbole that Battle Network 4 joins the list of my horrible gaming experiences, and I hope the day never comes where I have to experience it again.
I am, however, more on board getting to this game's far better sequel that, unfortunately, had interest in and abandoned because of the nonsense I just recapped, with Mega Man Battle Network 5, hopefully coming sooner rather than later, depending how far I am into reviewing Access by then. And yes, I do mean abandoned. While Battle Network 4 had some of the best sales in the franchise, interest dropped so badly, Battle Network 5 in turn had some of the worst, despite how much of a better game it is. But we'll get to that when we get to that, as I am Shinta, and my voice needs a rest. I'll see you all next time.